How you doing? It's Ron Harris with MassFit Prep. I'm here to talk to you today about training.
I keep on thinking that it's all done and all over now. You keep on thinking you can save me, save me. My ship is sinking, but it's all good and I can't go down. You got me thinking that the party's all over.
That hurts. That hurts. You know, when you're first starting out, you're a very raw novice in the lifting world. You got to try everything, and you do want to focus on the basics. You want to do all the basic barbell movements, bench presses, squats, deadlifts, barbell rows, military presses, barbell curls, skull crushers. And those are generally going to work very well for a period of a few years. As time goes by, you're going to find certain exercises give you better results than others. Certain exercises are not going to be really safe for you, especially as many years go by, and you're going to accumulate little wear and tear things, injuries. It's going to happen no matter how careful you are. We have human bodies, and they do start to break down over decades. And I'm talking decades of lifting. Like, I've been at this 32 years. Anybody that's been training for 20, 30 plus years, you're going to have little issues that you got to work around, and you have to find exercises that are going to continue giving you results. You're basically training around any injuries or issues so you can continue to get good workouts and still make gains. There's a lot of different ways you can split up your training. You can do 2 on, 1 off, 3 on, 1 off. You could work out 5 days a week, take weekends off. Generally, you want to break it up so that the body parts have a fighting chance to get a proper workout. So back would be something you always want to train by itself. If your chest is a lagging area, you probably want to do chest on its own day. Same for arms, legs. And you might find you get a better result training, breaking up your leg workouts into quads one day, hams on another day. And there are little rules that I like to follow. You know, things like your biceps are part of every back movement you do, so you don't want to train biceps the day before you train back because they're going to be sore and they're going to interfere with a good back workout the next day. The same thing with working triceps and then doing either chest or shoulders the next day. You're going to be sabotaging yourself from getting the best results possible. And other things, you just got to really pay attention to overlap and things like that. Like, you wouldn't want to squat and deadlift on back-to-back days. Both of those are very, very demanding on your lower back. So the second day in that sequence is going to suffer because the lower back's not recovered. It's going to need a good 2, 3, 4, in some cases 5 or 6 days to fully recover from a tough squat or deadlift session. When you start out, everything's going to be growing. As time goes by, very few people are going to have every body part growing evenly. You're going to find, for whatever reason, that something's going to start lagging behind 1, 2, or more body parts. And so if you don't give those body parts priority in your training, they're just going to keep falling further and further behind. So, for example, if your quads are getting a lot bigger in comparison to your hamstrings, if you don't do something about that, the disparity is only going to get worse and worse over time. And eventually, you're going to have these overpowering quads, and your hams are going to look flat and weak. Same thing with the shoulders. Most guys have pretty decent front delts, side delts, rear delts. You see a lot of lagging rear delts because it's just like hamstrings. Typically, guys will just remember to do them at the very end of a leg workout, and they're not putting a lot of time and effort into them. Same thing happens to a lot of guys with their rear delts. They're going to do those at the very end of their shoulder workout when they've already done presses, laterals, maybe upright rows, and then they'll go, oh yeah, I got to do my rear delts. So they'll do 3 or 4 sets, and then they're ready to get out of the gym. You have to work your weaknesses much harder than you do your strengths, because your strengths are always going to be your strengths. They're not going anywhere. If you have a dominant body part, it's not going anywhere. You don't need to worry about that. Just hammer your weak points, and your physique is going to become more balanced. You're just going to have a better physique over time, and that's what we're all trying to do as bodybuilders. As a bodybuilder, every time you train a muscle, you're trying to work that muscle as hard as possible to make it grow, or to maintain size if you're dieting, because realistically, you're probably not going to be growing while you're dieting. But throwing weight around is not going to keep tension on the muscle, and tension on the muscle is really what separates bodybuilders from all these other people around the world that lift weights. There are millions and millions of people that lift weights in the gym, but they're just moving a weight from one point to another. They're not consciously contracting a muscle and stretching a muscle as they do their reps. And that's what good form is all about. It's about working the muscle and being conscious of how that muscle is working throughout a set. You want to go as heavy as possible in good form. Throwing weight around You're taking the tension off the muscle when you do that. You see somebody doing heavy cheek curls. What's the bicep doing there? It's not under tension. You're using all these other muscle groups, lower back, shoulders, even legs if you're bouncing it up. Whereas if you cut the weight back and do it slow, squeeze, control the negative on the way down, keep that tension on the muscle. It might be a difference between cheek curling 150 pounds versus strict curling 90 pounds. You want to focus on the muscle you're working. You want to be able to feel it squeezing and contracting fully, feel it stretching as you're coming down for the negative. And that's when you're going to get the most out of every rep, every set. Recovery is something that wasn't really something bodybuilders thought about a lot of until I'd say Mike Mentzer started talking about it, then Dorian Yates as Mr. Olympia. He's probably the one that really brought into the consciousness of bodybuilders is that it doesn't matter how great your training is, if you don't rest the muscle and let it recover, it's never going to be able to grow. You have to do a certain amount of training to elicit that growth response and make gains, but there's going to come a point of diminishing returns for everybody. It's going to be slightly different for everybody. And you find a balance over time of how much is going to be just about right for you, where you're doing enough training to make gains, but you're not doing so much that your body never has a chance to recover. And that leads into the nutrition part of it too. A lot of guys train hard, they train consistently, and they don't realize how important nutrition is to it. They don't realize that unless they're putting all the fuel into their body on a consistent basis, you're never going to see the results that you could see. And a lot of times when people make that one change, when they start eating right, start eating plenty of protein, 1.5 grams, 2 grams per pound a day, eating enough carbs, enough healthy fats, getting maybe 4 or 5 meals a day and a couple shakes. Ideally 5 meals and a shake or two would probably be even better. That's when your body has everything it needs. And when you're putting that together with the sleep and off days, it's a perfect storm. You're stimulating, you're training the muscle hard, stimulating it to grow. You're giving it the fuel it needs to the building blocks to recover and grow, and then you're resting it so that the growth occurs. Don't spend a dime on supplements until you're eating right. Don't bother, you're wasting your money. I tell everyone, get your diet right. You need to be eating real food. So many guys, especially young guys, they don't eat right, and they think, well, if I have a shake, if I have creatine, if I have my pre-workout, if I buy all these flashy supplements, I don't need to eat right. It's gonna make up for it. It doesn't make up for it. Supplement, the word supplement means in addition to. When you add these things on, when you add a whey protein, or creatine, pre-workouts, when you add these things onto a good diet, that's when you're really gonna see the best results. You can't sacrifice a good diet and expect supplements to work. With anything, it's moderation is the key. You don't wanna have all shakes and not enough food. You don't wanna go crazy and rely on mega doses of stimulants every day. You wanna use everything in the prescribed amounts. That's when you're gonna see the best results. Training to me it's a sacred topic. I mean, I got into bodybuilding in the late 80s. As a kid, I looked up to these guys that I saw training really hard in the magazines. Rich Gaspari, Tom Platz, a few years later, Dorian Yates. These guys were badasses. They were strong. They took sets to the absolute limit and beyond. I mean, they just outworked everybody. And then later on, same thing with Ronnie. Why is Ronnie such a legend? Obviously, he was the freaky physique, but just watching the guy train, he was an animal. He had no quit in him. He wasn't afraid of any amount of weight. He would never stop until he had given 100% in the gym. He didn't rely on. I'm not saying that these people didn't use enhancements, chemical enhancements. They did, but they didn't rely on the chemical enhancements. And that's a critical difference that a lot of these guys now don't understand. Is that you can't expect supplements or drugs or any of that to do the work for you. You need to do the work. And doing the work, it means training really hard, training as hard as you can, pushing yourself to the limits. On those days when you're really not even feeling it, you still have to get it, summon that drive, that passion. And, I think that's what separates the best bodybuilders, and especially the ones that are legendary, these guys I talked about, from these current crop of guys that you can see it, that they have no passion for training. It's something that they have to do. It's almost like a necessary evil. They'd rather not train if they didn't have to. And, you even see it now with things like the oil that people are using. To me, that's the most ridiculous, ludicrous thing in the world. You're not even going to train. You're not even going to use a drug to enhance your training. You're just putting something foreign in your body to make it look like you trained. To me, that's just like You know, to have a giant arm that's all full of oil, to me, that's like some woman on Botched with implants, 3,000 cc's the size of beach balls, bragging about how big her chest is. What are you bragging about? You just put something in your body. You didn't work for that. You know, bodybuilding to me, it's all about hard work. You know, I know I'm old school. I'm 46 years old, and I started going to Mr. Olympia. The first Mr. Olympia I went to was when Lee Haney won his 8th. So I go back a ways in the sport. And, you know, my heroes are those guys like Lee Haney, and Platts, and Gaspari, Dorian, and Arnold. They loved training. They loved it, and that's how I am. You know, I've been training for 32 years. I still love it. You know, I'm all banged up. I'm in pain all the time. Shoulders, my knee, my back. Why? Why would I still do this to myself? Because I love it. I love it. You know, even though never turned pro, I'm not as big as the guys I wanted to be as big as, it doesn't matter. I love training. I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to stop training. And I'm always going to keep trying to improve. That's what bodybuilding is. It's self-improvement. It's going in there and giving it your all. Because you know, you're never going to know how good you can be unless you've tried your hardest. And that's what it's all about to me. Try your hardest. Do your best. You don't know how good you can be until you've done that. And you keep doing that. And you know, you're never gonna be done. So you're always gonna be a work in progress. And that's not a bad thing, that's a great thing. It means there's always potential for being better.
Take me down to the riverbed. Take me down to the fighting end. Wash the poison from off my skin. Show me how to be whole again. 'Cause I'm